Welcome to Trust the Journey. I'm Melanie Curtis.
And I'm Jason Moletsky.
Thank you, legit, for joining us today.
Yeah, our mission is living and learning, laughing and loving together with you.
We're here to grow and contribute through our practice of openness, honesty, vulnerability, humility, and trust, trusting the entire journey.
Yeah, and on that journey, we often talk about plant medicines, psychedelics, and other avenues of healing. When we do, we are sharing for informational purposes only. We're not doctors or therapists, and we don't promote doing anything illegal.
Inside us all, we have a deep, powerful knowing. We encourage curiosity, healing, and exploration of this consciousness.
Damn straight. Together, our handle is trustthejourney.today. Individually, you can find her at melaniecurtis.com and me at jasonmoletsky.com.
Thank you all again so much for being with us. On to the show.
Shaul Schwarz and Christina Clusiau are award-winning documentary filmmakers, cinematographers, and photojournalists based in Brooklyn, New York. They co-founded the production company Real Peak Films, specializing in documentary films and series that prioritize cinematic quality and journalistic integrity.
Shaul's debut documentary, Narco Cultura, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2013. In 2016, Christina and Shaul co-directed the Emmy-winning series A Year in Space. They produced with Time's Red Border Films, co-directed the documentary series Aida's Secrets, which premiered at Hot Docs in 2016, and they co-directed the Emmy-winning documentary Trophy, which premiered at Sundance in 2017.
Shaul and Christina were executive producers and cinematographers on the Netflix documentary series Unnatural Selection. They were the co-directors, producers, and executive producers of the Netflix docuseries Immigration Nation, which premiered in 2020.
In 2021, the series was nominated for a Gotham Award for Breakthrough Series, and it was a finalist for the DuPont Columbia Award for Excellence in Broadcast Documentary and Online Journalism. And it received the 2020 Hugh M. Hefner First Amendment Award, also the 2021 Peabody Award, and the 2021 Independent Spirit Award for Best Documentary Series. Christina and Shaul also co-directed and co-produced the documentary series Shaun White: The Last Run.
Their most recent film, Fly, which is streaming September 25th, 2024, is described this way. To stand on the edge of a cliff and throw your body into the wind, one has to be willing to lose everything. That could mean the love of your life, or it could mean the life you love. Over 7 years, Fly follows 3 couples entwined in the world of base jumping, risking everything for the rush of feeling truly alive.
In the heart-stopping film from National Geographic Documentary Films, Fly immerses viewers in the exhilarating yet perilous world of base jumping. At the heart of the film are 3 couples, Jimmy and Marta, pioneering figures affectionately known as the mom and pop of base jumping, the fearless wingsuit pilot Scotty and his newfound love Julia, and the resilient duo Amber and Espen, whose bond is tested by triumph and tragedy.
Through breathtaking aerial footage, verite scenes, and intimate interviews, the film explores the complex balance between passion and sacrifice, a poignant love story that celebrates the spirit of those who dare to defy gravity, capturing the essence of what it truly means to live on the edge. Shaul, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you on today. And pretty soon we should be joined by Christina. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Yeah. We've just been chatting a little bit before we started recording here, and already the emotions are coming up, and the smiles and all the feels, and just the depth of the human experience revealing itself in our journeys together. So just a bit of a backstory for the audience. Personally, I've gotten to know Shaul and Christina over the last 7-8 years in the base jumping world and throughout their filming of the documentary Fly. And we've become great friends in the process. And really, really happy to have gotten to know you guys and for the incredible work that you've done portraying our Sky family and our community and the passion that we all have for flight. So thank you so much for all of that.
Thank you. It's been quite a wonderful journey to get to know you guys.
Yeah. So when this episode comes to air, the documentary will have just hit the IMAX theaters across the country and around the world. And I'm sure would have been a mass attendance of skydivers and base jumpers and adrenaline junkies and all the extended families in lots of costumes and colorful outfits. And everybody listening to this, many people listening to this may have attended those and seen it. And there'll be all kinds of deep connection to having experienced your version of that journey and the storytelling that comes along with that. And being somebody who's been over 30 years in sky sports now and seen many, many portraits of what it is that we do, I have to say that this film in particular is also, because it hits so close to home for me, that it's such a rich, there's such a deep personal journey involved in the film. But it also does this magical job of actually telling our story in a way that I've never heard told before. And I want to dig in a little bit to your version about how this started out, like what you thought it was when you first started rolling tape, and to what it turned into.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a journey because, for one, it just took time for us to wrap around our heads of what we want to say, what's so unique, why are we so drawn to this. And the question we get asked of how it started, I'll do really quick because I think you want to go way deeper. This movie got started because I have a really good climbing buddy, Kike, who called me and said that he knows this legendary climber, Dean Potter, and his friends, and they're just going into Yosemite, and a lot of climbers and his friends are dying doing this. And we're like, oh, that sounds interesting. We could go check it out. And then a week later, Dean and Graham go in. And when we went in, we really quickly understood that we don't want to make a film about someone who's died. And we do not think that at the time we were like, oh, is this a short? We were like, this is really unique. They're really different. And our big recommendation from that trip is to go meet these legendary people called Jimmy and Marta, who we had not met. But interestingly enough, my friend Keegan knew Marta from back in the days. And we ended up going to Hella Boogie because we called Jimmy and he said, well, I'm going to this boogie if you want to meet a bunch of people. So that's how technically it got started. But and it was Jimmy who really took us in, to be honest, and introduced us to Scotty, and that's how we met Espen. And we met a lot of other people, and I think only a couple of years into, we did wrap around on the message of what base jumping means to us fairly quick. And we did want to portray the sport in a less clean way than maybe the Red Bull hero approach. And a lot of base jumpers told us, everybody wants to do this deaf and fun, and you won't get it right. It's too sensational, you won't. And we were like, no, we're going to stick around. We're going to try and get why this is like a life cult, as we called it, because people said, oh, they're adrenaline junkies, they're crazy, it's a deaf cult. And we're like, see it, but we see this much bigger, meaningful thing about this passion and what drives most of the people into it, and self-awareness and protection. And we saw for sure in Jimmy early on a lot of like wanting to be an ambassador to the sport, and then Espen and Amber were like that, and Scotty was turning into that. But it did take a while for us, and it truly happened when we started the editing, so about 3-4 years into the journey, to say, wait a minute, this is a love story. This is a story of 3 couples, and it's a love story to the sport that takes the most out of you and gives you the most back. but it's also this, and first and foremost, we wanted to portray this love story to human flight with its grave cost. But then the added thing that really sunk us was this idea of how do you do it in relationships? I mean, it's damn hard to understand that from the outside. And then when you're inside, like, you think, there's always like, and I had that, we grew up in photography, and I've done a lot of war photography. That was my thing early on. It was this weird thing that people wanted to date that guy, and then when they got to know it, they didn't. And to some degree, there was a similarity there.
Yeah.
And then when you're inside that relationship in the base world, what we saw is this pull and push of wanting to push each other further, but then there was a price and how to protect. And that's when we really sunk into the story we want to tell.
Yeah. Shaul, I just want to jump in because I'm coming to this conversation as someone who does not base jump. Yes, I have a lot of experience in skydiving and as a professional skydiver, but I've never base jumped, and I've never had the even interest to do so. I've always been too afraid of it. I'm also coming to this conversation having not seen the film yet because I haven't been able to see it, but I'm excited to see it, and I'm almost nervous to see it because I know how much base jumping footage, it's so dynamic. It's so activating for my system. And one of the things that I wrote down when I'm like, what would I want to know as this person who's outside of this subculture sport, but who's very, very interested in humans and relationship and love and all those things. And one of the questions I had was why couples? And you started to speak to that. And I'm curious, like, how did you, other than being introduced to them, how did you choose the couples that are featured? Was there something about them, or was it really just they're the only ones you got introduced to? What was that selection process in terms of these stories to tell?
Yeah, like I said in docs, you don't always, the dots kind of connect looking back.
Right.
We got introduced to Jimmy and Martha not because they were a couple per se, but because they were Jimmy and Martha. They had the status of the OGs that also were. We early on wanted to separate ourselves by doing the culture, and doing the community. And Jimmy and Martha were a perfect fit.
Absolutely.
But then we met Scotty as one of the guys. Keep in mind, this is 216. We met Scotty as one of, or maybe it was already 217, but right around there, as one of the guys who are really pushing hard wingsuiting. And Jimmy said, there's a couple of guys, but I think this guy he's maturing and he has an interesting push. And I think he's a good ambassador. And it was not about him being in a relationship at all.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And we actually met Espen as the guy that Scotty said, if you want to get really cool footage, this is a guy I really trust to run around in the Alps with and have a big camera on his head while doing it. And then in that first trip, it was really a bunch of boys. We didn't see the couple angle at all. And we really quickly understood that our cameraman is a really great character. Actually, Espen was just like different and so like philosophical about everything. It's clearly knowledgeable and been around. But he started talking a lot about women and men in the sport being different, and this new girl he's dating, and that kind of started that. Scotty was a little bit of a lone wolf at that point. But like I said, it actually took a while to sink into that. And we did follow quite a few other characters who were fascinating, and were in different aspects of the sport. And ultimately, I think that's what we do. We kind of draw a wide net to our story. We don't, me and Christina really like taking our time, getting lost in a subject. And so we don't come with preconceived idea of who the characters. We talk to so many. We start filming, and then we kind of like, oh,
amazing.
We want to see it. And once the scope became this love letter, then we were like, all right, Jamie Crawford is amazing character, and his jumping in urban setting is amazingly interesting. And maybe we'll do a show one day. But he doesn't fit this mold of Fly the movie, which is a love letter to human flight. It's through 3 couples. And so there was 1 or 2 other couples, and there was different great characters. And there were characters that don't spend all their life as base jumping.
Yeah.
They work as a policeman or as a pilot. And we thought all these are super interesting characters, but we did kind of commit to a love story. I think the irony we didn't see coming is that once we committed that, we started editing, and we're like, we're going to finish this film. It's been 3-4 years. And as we were getting close, Jimmy went in. And that, changed a lot. But it did actually double down on the view of a love story for couples. It actually was like, okay, now we have to get the strength to tell this.
Yeah. It was really obvious from my perspective that you were both just taking it all in for quite a while, because I've seen a lot of filmmakers come in and they very clearly have a targeted subject right from the beginning, and they know the shots they want to get, and just the story is a much shorter timeline. And I think that's the thing that I love so much about this film in particular is the duration, just simply the amount of years that are captured, because it creates a long enough arc that we really get the time to get into people's lives, and you can see them get older in the film and change and mature. And I saw that in the both of you as your own experiences as filmmakers in there, because we're wild-eyed and young, and then as the story develops and as we spend more time in the space, it starts to become family, and it starts to have a bit more pattern and a bit more routine to know everybody. And I've really enjoyed how having you two join in as members of the community, and once a face is familiar and continues to show up and be seen at events, and you're seeing the same people there all the time, that really settled in. And it really showed itself just last week when you guys put up a post on one of our Facebook group pages, and just everybody chiming in and seeing that interaction and connection. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about yourselves, actually, and how it's been for you to become part of this family, whether you jump or that's one of the things that's often said is it doesn't matter whether people jump or base jump or skydive or fly, or it just doesn't matter if we're connected emotionally through this intimate bond of the love of life and the passion of creativity. Tell me more about your experience getting to know the Sky family.
Yeah. No, it's all beautiful. I guess to me, it slightly does matter if you jump, because, the first time I saw this, I didn't want to skydive. I just wanted to base jump. I was up in Yosemite. It's an illegal jump. Christina was on the bottom, and I'm seeing the videos, but I never saw people actually exit, and my jaw dropped. I actually saw it through the screen of my camera, but as we got, so I actually was jealous from this first second, and Christina was like, I love these crazy misfits. I'd never want to do this. So we were like, and as time went through, I knew I wasn't, and Christina was like, it's going to be really hard if you want, and she was like, you don't want to skydive, you want to skydive because you want to get somewhere, and I'm not, I don't think that's so cool. But we did get really close, and I think the feeling you're describing, I had that talk with Jimmy where he was kind of surprised that we keep coming in, and he was like, what do you need? What's missing? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know. It depends what happens. And I remember like seeing the wheels turn, and he's like, huh, that's a little bit of a different approach than other folks. Like, he didn't say that, but I just saw that. But it was just like that to get what you described as this arc. But guess what? When we do these things, and we like to make films that way anyway, but this is the longest duration of a film we've ever made. When you do things that way, you do just become part of it. But to be really honest, we're always inside outsiders. I'm not a jumper. Christina's not a jumper. We can't exactly feel what you feel. We know all of you and we connect and we're friends, and we have made really good friends and a couple that we're constantly in touch with. But we're still journalists. We wear this hat. We want to understand, but we have to stay judgmental a little bit, right? This is, if not, we become a little blind. And, you know, this naive question of the beginning of, J-Lo, how does it feel to fly? Well, maybe you'll never know. If you really want to know, maybe you should, you know, do the journey yourself. So there is that, to be honest, there is that duality, and the friendships have become really deep. I remember in the beginning when I just started to like people or care about people, I had this Jewish mom. We would go up to some cliff. Remember it a lot with Scotty. Scotty was kind of like a little bit like, he said okay to being in the film, but he didn't wanna, and he made it clear, like, he would hike fast. I was like, oh, what? And he was like, oh, if you're in the exit, you're in the exit. You're not. And then as I got a little closer, I was like, he's sober enough from last night. Are you sure you want to exit, buddy? And that to me was this like, oh my God, you're caring. Careful.
Yeah. You know, one of the questions I had about the duration, because that 7 years is a long time. That's a lot of your life to spend doing something when the outcome is unclear, which I think is an incredible testament to your commitment to that creative craft. And I say that
Agreed.
as a high compliment. One thing I'm curious about is, did you ever want to quit? Did you ever give up on it and then come back to it? Did you never stop? Like, what? Because that's such a long-term commitment. I'm really curious what the ups and downs were in the process.
There was tons of ups and downs. We didn't want to quit. So the way technically this worked is we were accomplished filmmakers and made a couple of things, and we did raise the money to make an independent film, but that was not a lot of money in order to make this kind of journey. One reason people make films short is they like pre-script everything. They come, they shoot very little, they make sure they bang out beautiful stuff, and they're done. And we work the opposite. But yeah, it is a job. It is a reality, and it's this mixed thing because you're hanging for days and you're quiet, and you never want to push athletes in this space to do something they wouldn't do. It's very different from the Red Bull, or not to say anything's wrong. But so we didn't ever want to quit, but it was very, very hard. And it again, like this clarity of couples, for example, it was hard because we found these amazing other characters, and we spent funds and time and months and relationships and convincing and looking through their GoPro archives just to say, oh, we don't need this. You're a great story, but we're absolutely not going to use it.
Right.
So those are actually fairly hard, and
being that selective and having to deselect so that you maintain enough of a focus to be able to tell a story that's really inclusive and it's gotten enough meat on the bones.
Exactly, you nailed it. But it's super hard to be sure and come to clarity, especially after you've put so much energy into something that just creatively you're like, oh, I'm going to put it in the trash. Like, this is, I don't need this.
It's the kill your,
these 5 trips I took and all this hard drive and this edit time and this money I spend. I'm just going to
cutting room floor.
There's
right?
There's this thing called
filmmakers deal with that. For us, it was also a little bit emotional, and how you deal with all all of that. And I think one of the harder things was like, we did understand that generally base jumpers are misfits, and people from the outside, we thought it was super fun and really fell in love, but we were like, wait a minute, people from the outside, they can be quite judgmental. And I think we didn't even understand just how much, but we had that feeling. And so for us, it was like important to have these characters that this is not their whole life, because they're a little bit like one of you, the regular people. And then they're also that. And when it's like you, it's easier to draw in that person.
Yeah, how is it going to resonate for others?
And so, we try to introduce that in our main character's background. Like, when we met Julia, Scott and Julia, she was a base jumper, but her background was a lawyer and very different. And we wanted to make sure that we cover that so we could draw you in. But yeah, it's the hard thing about an edit is you're not sure, and it's much harder when you really love the people you're trying to tell their story, and you want to be positive and you want to stay real. That sounds like just an easy equation. It's not. And then to make this more complicated, while this is a movie that we're super excited, more than anyone want to share it with skydivers and the family, the base fam, it is a movie for actually the normal person.
Yeah.
I remember early rough cuts and people saying, well, are you just celebrating this guy's death because you love him? And are you being honest about it? Is there too much of it? Are you not, there's all these things that you start weighing, and then there's so much things you want to explain to people and it becomes hard. And, we made this film as an indie film, and as we were making it, we didn't want to look for a home, because the thing is, when you do have a broadcaster, it's great, except then you don't have this freedom to say, I'm going to take 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, broadcasters don't like that. They want to see the film. They want to say, next year in this window, we're going to air it. But, somewhere what had happened to us is we started editing the film, like I said, cracking the code as a love story. And then Jimmy. And then we stopped and we asked ourselves a lot of questions, and we knew we were going to have to film a little bit more. And we knew we needed to give time to Marta and to some people to kind of come into the right moment and space where it's raw enough, but not too early.
Right.
But we also just knew it was going to be a longer journey. And at that point, we actually ran out of money. When we came back and shot, we were just going out of pocket deep. And we were worried because we've been editing a lot of stuff that was now going to just go. And so we decided we were like, look, me and Christina like doing social impact films, and this one was a little different. It was always our kind of love baby, and we were willing to go, but it's a big thing. You have to complete the journey. And so we went out to sell the film, and we were just so nervous because we knew we had this amazing story that got even more amazing, and we were so sure of our angle and that we could pull it off. But yeah, we just needed, and so that was definitely hard. And then we sold it, and it was perfect because it was like the right place and the right buyer, and we were very lucky to have them, and we were very honest about what the vision of the movie is and that we're going to take time. And so we had the funds to complete it. But then something funny happened, which we didn't see coming. We suddenly had to live up to the expectation. because we were like, oh, all this happened. And now now a buyer came and we suddenly have money to do this. Can we make it commercial and good enough and honest? What will the family think? What will Nat Geo think? What will the film critic think? What will we look in the mirror? And stories that you don't have, some stories are more clear. They have a more clear timeline. This one wasn't. And to be honest, it looks so easy now when it's done. It's like, what other way? But just to give you, like, Jimmy gave me tapes that I think Jimmy and Martha never looked at.
Yeah, most likely.
There was 26 hours just of that.
Yeah.
Most of them were not just GoPros that you're like, oh, who cares? He's just flying. There was so much. And it was really hard. And me and Christina had a hard time agreeing on what's raw and what's long and balancing and pushing. And so it was and the thing about a film is you never know till that moment in South by where we sat and you, J-Mo, surprised and came just that morning. That was an amazing addition. But all these people, you don't actually know how people are going to fully react. You hope. And so it definitely is. It pulled at us, and there was a lot of ups and downs and a lot of tests. And I do feel, and I'm not just saying it to tap ourselves I do feel that we actually hit what we wanted. People might walk away and have different thoughts and different things they don't like, but we wanted to inspire people with this group of folks we met and what they do, and stay really honest and not be a call for people to just enter and be reckless and have that kind of pull and thug.
You know, I want to quickly just respond a little bit to kind of something that's coming up for me here. Is I've spent a lot of my life trying to justify, accept, live with, be okay with, and even understand the whole journey. And at times it's been something that I very clearly did not understand within myself, that why I was jumping or whether I was okay with the risk and then still being pulled to do it. And virtually never is that story portrayed, or has that story been portrayed to an outside audience in a way where I don't feel in some way like the storyteller, whoever makes a film or writes an article or whatever, tells, I'll just say my story in a way that I feel good about the way that they've told it. I always end up feeling like, am I a schmuck? Am I just like being an ass-tard here? Like, what am I doing with my life? You know, am I really this reckless and selfish? And like, these are the deeper questions, you know, like, am I really just a reckless asshole who just runs around throwing himself off stuff and doesn't respect my own life and my own health? And then we all just party and celebrate how stupid we are. Is it really like that? Or is it just a big circus? And a part of the reason why tears stream down my face in this film is that you've actually told the love story of the love of flight. And to me, that having that expressed in a way where I feel like, the producer was sitting next to me in the theater and I could see the tears in his eye, you know, and the emotional experience was shared, you know. And I feel like for the audience who gets to tap into that true, like that purpose, the reason why is almost never conveyed. So I just wanted to reflect on that a little bit, be a little vulnerable with my own self-judgment in this journey of being one of these people in the space jumping and skydiving world. And Mel, is there anything else you want to add in there?
Yeah, I Love that share, because I feel like there's a multitude of ways we're looking at this. Jay, you being an immersive member of the base jumping family, Shaul and Christina being sort of those insider outsiders wanting to tell a story, waiting for understanding what's happening. And then me, this person is sort of also an insider outsider in a different way. A couple of things that you shared, Shaul, that I think are worth double tapping on is this idea that once a creative work is out in the world, that it's no longer ours. That like there's a surrender. If we talk about base jumping as a metaphor, skydiving as a metaphor, leaping as a metaphor, I feel like that's such a beautiful thing to just highlight relative to creative works. It's so brave. You guys put 7 years of your like whole heart into this project, and then you release it, you surrender it to the world, to the judgment of the world, and they receive it however they receive it. And it's like, whew. But the other thing that I want to highlight relative to your share is the maintaining of the integrity of your voice. Like you keep saying, how do we stay honest? And that I hear integrity for you about what's that story, what's true, what actually happened, and what actually are we pulling out of it. So I love all of that. One thing I want to ask about, which I read in one of the things about the film, and this touches a little bit on what you shared, Jay and Shaul, I'm curious what you have to say about this, is a quote from Amber. She said, "Why is it without flying, I feel nothing?" Which is like, ooh, that like quote hits me hard. And I'm wondering what you, as that insider outsider, as the filmmaker, saw in that type of a share and felt from the people that were in the film having the experience. The sponsor of today's episode is Great Spirit Farm. Yes. Love having Great Spirit Farm with us, and specifically their ayahuasca microdose tincture. It is a natural MAOI antidepressant and anti-anxiety. Great Spirit Farm describes the feeling as a warm hug. It can help you access deep creativity, flow, intuition, and improve vivid dream recall, which actually has totally been my experience.
So what is exactly in the bottle is the ayahuasca vine itself. So this is a tincture extraction, double extraction tincture that contains the Banisteriopsis caapi vine. Now, the particular vine that this has been extracted from has been growing in Florida now for over 25 years. And the ayahuasca vine does not contain DMT, so that makes this tincture 100% legal in all 50 states.
Yeah, Great Spirit Farm recommends starting with 1 to 3 dropperfuls and increasing your dose gradually from there until you feel the effects. There are no known contradictions with antidepressants, and always check with your doctor and only take as directed.
And what's really great about what Great Spirit Farm is doing is they're making sure that 10% of all the sales are returned to the Shipibo tribe, honoring the medicine's indigenous roots with active reciprocity. Now, if you want to try this tincture out for yourself, you can go to the website that is ayadose.com, AYADOSE.com, and you can enter our discount code TTJ10 to get 10% off your order. Again, that's ayadose.com and all caps TTJ10 to get 10% off your order.
I think any base jumper that's been injured goes through, particularly in a serious way, goes through maybe that emotion. I think it was very deep from Amber. I've seen it happen many, many times in that span of about a year of her journey of kind of getting back to base. From a rational point, once you're in this and you're doing this and you're actually living off it, of course, if it just gets taken away, then you feel empty.
Sure.
that point that JMO was making is that thin line that we try to express in the film, which, are you selfish? Is it selfish to your mom? Maybe. Is it wrong to be happy? Is it selfish to be happy, as Marta says? No. The line, that push and pull is a little bit different for each individual.
Sure.
And it's one thing if you get to make that choice. It's another thing if you get hurt and you haven't passed. You're hurt and now you're trying to do that. So, that is the state where Amber was. So it was very relatable. I think it's very relatable to the audience seeing it, which is great because I think, again, in different edits, a lot of the feedback when we did early cuts of the film was get to like this really pounding things of character earlier. So, for example, hopefully it's not a spoiler for what is seen, but Amber does get hurt in the process of the film, and we don't front that in the film. And partially is because we just wanted you to care, and we wanted to celebrate human flight first, and then be really honest about all the price and all the stakes that all our characters started having, whether it's the question of being parents, or the question of when enough is enough, or do you what are you doing? You literally almost died, and this is the only thing you can think about. But they all play in that arena of the selfishness to happiness to what's the right pull. And I do think the answer is personal. And we have met, and one of the characters that didn't get featured in the film is a woman that probably no one in the Sky family knows, that we randomly met in Norway. And I was sitting with her on an exit point, and she was a mother of 2, and she hadn't base jumped in 4 years because her older daughter was 4 at the time. And it was amazing. We ended up portraying her, and I'm getting into the story even though it's not in the film. And it was, her name was Mullen, and it was super strong because it was almost like she was having an affair. She didn't really tell her. She told her husband she's just going to go hang out, that he has a kid. She went to the boogie. She sat there for 2-3 weather days, and she sat for a full day, and then she finally did a jump. And then once she did it, she went back and told him that her life is not complete and she was going to go back and all these things. And it didn't happen, because once she'd done it, she realized that for her, the stakes were not worth it. And it was when I saw that this journey, it's quite personal, and I really respect that. But we did want people to feel it. I totally get it, because I think if you're willing, when you're willing to step off an object, I think it just transforms the way you see life outside of jumping. That's kind of how we saw the people we met. And then you have to calculate that. But yeah, it made so much sense if I was in Amber's shoes, or if I already was in this balance that we're all talking about. The idea of it just being yacked away from me, it would be too much.
There's a share that I like to make to people to help to try to allow and convey to them an understanding of why we choose to fly. And I try to explain the idea is that we're in free fall right now, right? We don't know where the ground is, right? This life is happening, and at some point it's just going to come to a screeching halt, right? It could be in 5 minutes, it could be in 5 months, could be in 5 years, could be in 25 years. We just don't know. When we step off of an object or out of a door of an airplane, you know exactly where the end is, right? You have a very clear amount of time left, and it forces us into an awareness of, shit, what am I going to do right now? How am I going to act between now and then? And we can either allow fear to overwhelm us and move into a state of resistance and start fighting with our situation, which is being in free fall. Or we can recognize that there's nothing to worry about right now. We might as well enjoy every second we have until there is truly something an action to be taken, something to worry about, something to do. And so it's either recoil and fear, panic, or expand, love, celebrate, rejoice, and just woohoo, and just this love the life that we have to live. And that expression, most everybody that I share that with, they get it. They're like, oh, okay. So I either spend my time afraid of what may be coming, because it's coming for all of us, or I spend the now just enjoying the time that we have together.
The thing with that is I don't think they're black and white. There is a gray.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so interesting watching different jumpers. We're all different people, even inside that. Okay, but how far do I kind of slide it?
Absolutely. It's a good question. Like how it begs the question of self-reflection on that for each of us, as in, and it can be relative to flight, base jumping, skydiving, or whatever, or it can be relative to entrepreneurial risk or whatever risk that we are facing, relational risk, anything, you know what I'm saying? In terms of what is my line? When is enough enough? That's such a powerful question, you know, and I think it can slide back and forth. You know, I'm honestly, to be honest, I don't really know when enough is enough. It's a question that I look at. Yeah, for sure.
I love when people come out of this film. I've had a couple of times that people have come out and said, this is crazy. They're crazy. I'm going to quit my job. And I'm like,
right.
Right. Yeah, it's just like they're willing to do so much. And I say I'm living for my, you know, I've had someone tell me, I think I'm going to break up with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I don't know the girlfriend, but I thought it was amazing because I was like, oh, it's that graze of people's risk versus selfishness versus joy versus happiness that we all have to balance differently and accept that. And what I love about that in the process of reflecting them on themselves, they actually understood these group of misfits that we've come to love and know, and that are widely misunderstood, in my opinion. This base jumping community, they're easy for people, and that's what I think we do feel accomplished. And I hope that people who get to check out the film from the community from out will see this idea of like coming in and saying, where's my right balance in what Jay you described? Where is that risk versus reward balance beyond in life, in being emotionally happy and taking risk and taking. I think we apologize because Christina wanted to be here the whole time, and baby Luke, our girl, wasn't having it. Finally, Christina is here.
Yay!
Yes,
baby. Christina, welcome.
Welcome, Mom.
That's right. Sweet Luca, down for her nap.
So we were just diving deep into the kind of the experience of risk in each of our own lives and the relationships that we have to it. And there's a quote that I was actually just stirring. It's so interesting how the universe works and how things just come up. As I was driving over here last night, I was driving alone and I was thinking a bit, and there was a quote like kind of bubbling to the surface in my mind, and it was, quit your job, follow your passions. You know? And I feel like this is kind of that exactly what you were saying there, Shaul, about this, like we each have a line in our life where when we're on the wrong side of it and we know it, and there's something there where we're like, just not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm doing something that I think I should be doing, but not what I really want to be doing. And there's the coming to terms with this like accepting that we're going to have to go down a path that may have a lot of unknowns to it. It may be uncomfortable. It might be scary. There might be a perception of risk involved. There might be actual risk involved. So I want to kind of swing this back around to you guys, because I know you're both at this point now where it's basically out of your hands, right? It's in theaters, it's streaming, it's out in the world. Where are you now? Where's ground? Like, are you tell me where you're at, Christina. I want to hear about you. I've missed your face. I'm so glad you're able to join us. How are you?
Good. I mean, good. I don't know. I think that I and probably Shaul are kind of in a place that we're unfamiliar with at the moment, which is we don't have a lot going on. We are being parents. That's
Nice.
kind of been like the priority, and we're trying to figure that out. It's a little bit challenging. Up to this point, I think all we've done is back to back to back projects. And there's something to be said about like, that's what drives us. Like, we enjoy it. We enjoy working.
It's our flight.
And we enjoy creating and putting things out into the world. And we enjoy the entire process. But I think we're at a stage now where we're trying to figure out what that continues to look like with a 2-year-old toddler. And I think at the beginning of this whole experience of being a parent, we didn't take much time off at all. I worked all the way up to the birth, and I worked for 9 months after.
Yeah, you were right in it.
The first few months that I've been able to really dedicate time to her, and it's kind of a weird feeling. It's different.
It's a thing.
Not something. It's like they say the cliche quote is that the days are long and the years are short, and it's kind of true because I'm on toddler time. That's it.
Yeah, well, and if we constantly fill our time with the same thing over and over, back-to-back projects, even though you love it, there's never any space for new opportunity or insight or inspiration to emerge. So I give you guys credit for allowing that space and doing something different, just because it sounds like that's what you want to do, even though it's uncomfortable.
But I think also, Jamie, to part of your question was, how are we when a film's out and it's out of our control?
Yeah.
And you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I always thought about it. It was interesting in our last film, which was about big game hunting. And it was interesting. It was a very different film, but the process of letting go of it, putting it into the world, was quite interesting because the actual characters of the film took kind of liberty to take it on their own. And I found that to be very beautiful. It's like all of a sudden the film had legs. And I'm speaking to the previous experience because I don't know what this experience will necessarily be, because it's not out there yet. But in the last film, it was quite interesting to watch how the characters of the film took it on as their own and made it their own. And for me, that was really kind of great. It's like you can only have control for so long. And once the film is into the world, it's into the world. And that's kind of beautiful. Whatever form it takes, it takes. And I think that's hopefully in this film, it will be similar, that people will gravitate towards some sort of meaning of the film, however they may gravitate towards it. And I think we've already seen it. I think at the beginning when the first few screenings, I felt like it was quite meaningful for everyone, including us, to have people there and to have this experience and to actually bring it to fruition. And, it's hard to understand like what we're actually doing when we're just following people around with a camera for so long. It's like the concept of like how it forms and what happens and what it's going to look like, even to us, is it doesn't exist till it's actually done.
Nice.
We're speaking before the IMAX release, but we've had that dream to bring to us. It was like kind of untouchable that the film will actually be in a wide IMAX release. So the fact that it's actually going to happen, the ability to see it that way, to experience flight and to make the guy is kind of larger than life because it's not a given. It's great to work for streaming. It's still lucky, but the idea to have it in theaters and the biggest theater and have an event is really, really, really rewarding. But I want to add one thing. I think we make films not to have people have conclusions, but to make people ask questions.
Oh,
Yes,
great.
we want to like steer you in the direction of how we see things, of something saying of like and each film is a little different in that. But what does unite trophy hunting, immigration, Shaun White's story, whatever we've done is once we bring you in, and this film is very true, we want that conversation. We don't want it to end in like, oh, this is what we wanted you to just think. We want you to argue. And here are the arguments. It's like, maybe that if you watch this and you still want to judge people and think they're crazy and selfish and why would you do it to your mom, then that's fine. Argue with the other guy who wants to quit his job because he just felt that he's sitting on a sofa in his life. That's actually like creating a conversation is actually almost the meaning of it too.
Yeah.
So we're not scared of letting go. We're excited of it.
Yeah.
And in this film, because it's more about a state of mind and heart and soul rather than maybe a complex political thing. It's actually more easy to let go. And the other part that's really rewarding is we love this community. So I think we would be more scared if we felt that we weren't true to it or harsh in a way, but we feel pretty true to it, even though I do think it's going to bring some pain and some self looking in the mirror, but those are positive. So I don't
That's
even
part of it too.
like,
That's part of everything, right? When you're making decisions like that and living a lifestyle that has a high risk to it, looking in the mirror is part of what you do. You know?
Absolutely. Christina, I want to give the platform to you a bit more. I kind of want to go a different direction in that I'm quite curious about this myself. Jay and I obviously have a creative partnership. You guys have a creative partnership. Obviously, you're a couple, parents, and your film is about couples. I'm curious what you guys have to share about working together. You know, what works for you? What are the pitfalls? Like, what would you share about being in a working partnership like that might help other people listening that have the same situation?
I think it's both a really nice thing to have. I think for me, I don't think I'd do this type of creative work at this stage in my life if I wasn't doing it with my partner. I think it's too taxing and it's too we spend so much time. I mean, maybe we don't have a great work-life balance, and I think that's what we're trying to fix, but we spend so much time talking about the projects and the work and the creativity. And I think that kind of fuels us and it drives us because we'll go on road trips or we'll go on vacation and we'll be talking about ideas. And I think that's actually for those conversations to happen outside of like a formal environment of a team meeting about talking about ideas. I think that's important because it just flows and you think about it and you come back to it. And so in that aspect, I think the creative inspiration is really important. I think for us, we have different skill sets.
Okay.
You know, Shaul is good at things that I'm not good at and vice versa. And I think that's also a benefit is that, we're not the same minded. And at the same time, that's also a challenge because we butt heads a lot and we think differently about things and our work process is different. And I think that's also a challenge. But I think we find ways. I think having separate skill sets is also makes it easy to keep working together in that sense because we kind of know our roles.
Yeah.
And that's kind
you
of
complement each other.
Outside of actually being in the field and filmmaking, I feel like when we're in the field together, we complement each other a lot.
Yeah, the field is easy.
That's kind of
we don't butt heads a lot in the field. That we're extremely rare. We trust God. We enjoy that journey. It's the rest that
I feel like it's in the field when you're working with people and you're actually observing and documenting. I think we have the same sort of idea of what that should look like to us and how we process and how we actually work in that environment, how we think about the world and think about individuals that we're working with. It's, to take a step back and just let things unfold. We're not very prescriptive in that sense. We don't overly plan. And I know we've worked with other individuals, and it's quite a different process. And I think we like working in that way, is that we just kind of go and we tend to plan a little bit beforehand, but then we really want to see on the ground. I think that's what informs a lot of stuff. And then a lot of the challenges come after, when you're actually working in the production process, when you're editing, when you're managing, when you're, all of that is just much more challenging.
So I have a question that's in the same vein of working together as a couple in a creative process, but also as a reflection to specifically the context of the movie. I'm curious if the storyline, the journey of the characters in the film has reflected into your own lives and how you viewed your time together. And
Yeah, I think the most it has is, we're used to people coming up to us and saying, "Oh my God," to use Julia, there's nothing like, she says in the movie, everybody wants to do what they love with the person they love. And people think of us that way.
Right.
But suddenly our subjects, they took it to a different level. We suddenly were like, wait a minute, they're a little more pure than us. They're really on the edge. And it was kind of interesting to have that shifted on you, even though it feels the same. And we were like, are we doing everything we love? Are we, where are we giving up? How do we, should we be more selfish? So there was that part of it, of kind of challenging that bit. I think it's hard to work together sometimes. I think if something is not hard, it's going to get boring.
Yeah.
Though.
Great.
I'm a little different. I just heard Christina say, well, if I wasn't doing this with a person I love, I wouldn't be doing it. I would. Film is what I have. Storytelling is who I am. I can't imagine. There's not in base. I can't get injured maybe, and I don't know. I can't, this is life. I'm going to be 50. I've been telling stories since I'm 20 with a camera, and I don't want to ever stop. But yeah, it's the first time we told a story that's kind of a love story, and it was a little reflective to us, and we're really close, and all that sounds like pluses, but it's also wait, are you blind? So I think it's just it's all yeah. Like I said, we like making movies that ask questions, and we call it the mind fuck. What's the mind fuck? And if we can't find one, we don't make that show or that movie. Then when we find it, we want it to be personal. And in this film, there was I pointed out, similarities to some degree. We and Scotty and Julia had a kid in a very short distance of each other, and we had a lot of conversations if that's going to fuck up our lives. And to some degree it does, and to some degree it reinvents it. But I love it. It makes it personal. It's a reason to wake up in the morning and doubt and think and then push forward.
Yeah, I feel like one of the threads in the film, and again, I haven't seen the film yet, but in reading about it and getting ready to see it, this thread of passion and this that passion pushing us forward, and the dichotomy of both freedom, yes, within the context of a couple, but also just in general conceptually, this dichotomy of this passion driving us forward, coupled with that freedom, but also that safety, that what is it? Where do we make that decision to, keep our partner safe? And this is relative to the film for sure. And Christina, I'd be curious what you have to say about those concepts, maybe again, I'm not really sure what I'm asking, more like what came up for you, or what would you say about those ideas that are so present in the film?
What do you say that you
He said you didn't want me to start base jumping. I remember that part. Not that I'm sure I would.
Well, yeah. And Shaul did mention that. And please feel free to share about that if you want.
Yeah, I told him he couldn't base jump.
But I wasn't that close.
Yeah.
I was just eyeballing it. I didn't skydive or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good questioner idea. This dichotomy between freedom, or the precarious balance between being free, but then also, having a little bit of responsibility for the other, or not necessarily responsibility, but you're sharing a life with the other person, and you think about them, and so I can see in the mind how quite complex that is that this ultimate freedom, yet this non-freedom in a sense, and this like control and release, and all of these things that are kind of oppositional poles, that you're choosing to be with somebody, therefore giving up one aspect of your own freedom,
right?
Yet you're actually desiring to be entirely free. And I think that's kind of the complexity of it all is in the film. I think that's what we were trying to kind of get across in ways. I think at times it came very indirect. It happened in Jimmy's death. When Marta speaks about it, it's complex. It's these two halves of the same whole. And, what is that question? I think that's kind of something that we wanted to raise, but not give an answer. I think for each individual person, it's their own, thing to explore.
I've had this come up in my own relationships, all of them. It's unavoidable that the conversation around making these decisions to jump or not jump greatly impact the other person in the relationship. And as much as they impact ourselves, like our own decision to say, this is what the risk I'm going to choose to allow into my life, accept and choose into in my life, how that's going to affect me is one thing, how it's going to affect my partner is another. And I think there isn't a single couple or a single relationship inside of high risk sports or ventures of any type that don't affect the other person in it. And when I think about, I'm thinking about your story right now more than I'm thinking about my own. I'm thinking about watching the two of you get to your own point of like, what is the story we're telling here, and it coalescing and it coming together. And I'm kind of want to go a layer deeper into the takeaways from the time inside of this community, like as a couple, as individuals, what have been the big questions that you've left with now that you're stepping back and looking at it as a period of your lives?
Yeah, I don't want to leave, but I want to stay in the community so I could keep. But
I'm happy to hear that.
I think the question some have mentioned before is like, I'm used to people think that we live this amazing life and that we do so much for freedom and we're just out there. And I definitely think that in this community, I've met people who are putting a lot more on the line. Because listen, if we disagree on something and maybe something's not perfect in the film, you know what, a year or two is going to pass in this project and that project, and it's not going to be this big thing. When this community, when you do something silly, we all know what could happen, or injuries and how you stick and what you do. So I do think that is very different. We can't, like I said before, we are not jumpers and we don't fully pretend to be. And so there is some kind of border there that we can understand, but it's not us. And I think the other thing I did take away, and I'm trying to put it into play, I don't know if always successful, is just to stay silly and joyful. It sounds kind of basic, but as we mature, it's not so basic. And the lines of it, it's beautiful unless it's really selfish. Again, that finding that thing, and I want to stay curious and funny and do films my way and not give up. Like the thing is, when you take it to our world, it's quite different, right? Like like in my world, it means like, don't take whatever that Netflix HBO job that wants you to make a movie in a year, but you'll make a shit money from it, and do this 7-year project that who knows, they sound cool, but life has these weird challenges. And also, just because you spend a lot of time somewhere, doesn't mean it'll be great. You still have to find something, a world that's truly great, and get in there and do something different and feel like you've connected. So I think to reflect back on us, like, I think what inspired me in base jumping is putting it all on the line, and this idea of freedom and silliness and fun and costumes and drugs, whatever it was, that I was like, I kind of want a little piece of that beyond the flight that and then how do you apply it? How do you apply it? And then also be like, okay, but that's my safe zone, my good zone that marries well. But I do like how this world rubs off us. And even though, like I said, like he was like, 2 feet on the ground. And I was like, the first time I saw people jumping, but we were intrigued in a similar way. We never didn't want to go on something, or like we were drawn to the trips, to hanging out, to doing these things. It'll be usually when we finish a film that just stops. Doesn't mean our relationships with the characters, like we have great relationships, but it does stop. You don't, I can't go on immigration raids or on trophy hunts or whatever it is, because it stops. And here I do think we're going to have to find a balance. If we do more work, that would be amazing. I think that's what we've come to kind of want to see if we can bring to fruition. But if we don't, beyond staying friends, like, how do we do this if we're not jumping, will be interesting.
Christina, I want to hear your take.
I think I really like this community. I really do. I think
we like you too.
We like you too, yeah.
Extremely inspiring about just the collective conscious of the community itself, that it's hard to get in other places. I feel like in a lot of my communities that I've grown up in, or that we work in now, it's like there's a lot of things, small things, that are always kind of entering into the conversation. And the perception that I have of the base jumping community is that a lot of that stuff kind of falls away at certain points. I'm sure, I imagine you're all human, we're all human. Is that there's a lot of small stuff that we all sweat about. But there's something about when you enter into the community, especially around events and places, and where there's a group of people together going to jump off a mountain or a cliff or a plane, a lot of that stuff falls away. And I think early on, I really talked about that. My perception is that when you're standing at the edge of a cliff, I felt like it really informs how you live. And I don't know, I mean, I've never really stood at the edge, like physically stood at the edge of the cliff ready to jump off, but I can imagine that all those little things just fall away. And to me, that's really inspiring, because I think it's very hard to do on a daily basis when you don't have the support of the community, when you don't have people around you that are like-minded, or that have times of the year where you're spending time together in a very similar situation. I think a little bit, we kind of compared it up, we're both photojournalists, we come from that. And there's something in that community that feels a little bit similar in the sense that you are kind of in it together, that you are doing the same sort of work, the same sort of experience. You have your different mindset of it, but when you're together, it's you understand each other on a deeper level that you don't understand if somebody is not like-minded like you. If that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a rawness to it.
Quite inspiring, and I think for this whole time that we filmed, I was always really inspired by that.
Yeah, and it's like you're there for each other.
I love the quote of "Stay silly."
Me
I think
too.
Melanie will resonate with that one. And honestly, it's
yes.
been a hard lesson for me. Like I came into air sports pretty angry and kind of rubbed by the world. You know, like the world had really been rubbing on me and chafing me in a hard way. And I wasn't happy, you know, but skydiving and base jumping brought me happiness and brought me the feeling of like, oh, I can be here right now. I can be happy. And the silliness of it all and kind of letting that overflow into the rest of our lives and just kind of dropping the seriousness. And Christina, what you said there about when you step up to the edge, it all falls away. These two things go hand in hand together for me, that when you do realize, I'm like, whoa, right now, it's everything behind me is irrelevant. What only matters is where I am, because in front of me is my destiny. And I'm just right here in the in-between, you know, and we're just in this in-between all the time. And if we make it really serious, then it's not really fun. It's not. And it's so easy to make it into this like serious mess, like make it really intense, make it really matter. But then the second that you take the next step forward, it doesn't matter anymore. And you could have been silly and you could have just enjoyed it and you could have just smiled or worn that outfit that I would never wear, you know, because I'm too judgmental of myself, you know. And then you look back and you're like, yeah, I could have, because it wouldn't have mattered, because whether I live or die in the next second, it's still irrelevant, right? Like that second past is a second past, and our lives are so finite. And whether we're actually like allowing them to be as rich as we can allow them to be.
Yeah,
Mel,
well,
you have anything else
I
you want to
feel
add?
like we could certainly talk for a long time. I mean, even just from the creativity angle alone, I have like a million questions, but we want to be mindful of your time. Is there anything, I mean, Christina, I know you didn't hear what we talked about, but is there anything that you really want to share while we're here? Is there anything that, and Shaul, same to you, is there anything that we didn't cover that you guys want to make sure we get to talk about?
And let me caveat that is that, I mean, this is kind of the broader, I'd say one of the broader spaces with the Sky family and community, other than in like our Facebook groups, you know. So please take the mic.
I just want to thank the community. You know, I feel like it's not that easy to open your lives to a camera or a filmmaker that's, you know, coming in and saying, hey, we're going to just hang out and follow you. And, you know, this is not scripted, and whatever you do is just going to be on camera. And I think we were really accepted. And I think that's really, there's something to be said about that.
Amazing.
It's just, you know, I remember like Shaul probably talked about Jimmy the first time in Greece. So Jimmy invited us after we met him at Hellebucky, Norway. He invited us to a Greece event that he was doing. And we got there and it was great fun. And the last night there's this party, and, you know, Shaul and I knew nothing about costumes. We didn't bring any costumes. And everybody was like, well, where's your costume? We're like, well, what do you mean? And we got to the party and we, you know, had something on, and Jimmy looked at us and he said, I like you guys, but we got to work on those costumes. Make sure you have something better from your closet.
And of course, if anybody actually then dressed us for that event, there's actually a picture of us looking all silly.
Yeah, he was somebody that made us feel extremely accepted.
he got the idea of the film, he was a bit confused by our process because he was used to people being much more quick. But at a certain point, he did be like, what? And then he saw we won an Emmy for something, and I was like, oh, we could win more even for this one. I do, different movie, different life. I do wish he was here to actually see it, because part of what I am happy about, and I hope we're the beginning of a tip of an iceberg, is I hope base jumpers will get recognized as real athletes. Without, in the beginning, when we started this movie, we were like, why is this illegal? We should make this a fight. We should make sponsors come into this. And now we're much more conflicted because we've seen the beauty of the rawness and understand this kind of inner fight. But I do hope that beyond just what people think about jumpers, I would like to see this sport actually grow and get some support and have people be able to make some kind of living off it. So, and in later conversations with Jimmy, I knew that while he loved the silliness, he wanted to see that too. And I hope the film slightly helps that in bringing it to a mass crowd and to IMAX and to streaming, and we will keep trying to, because I do think that just as a dream of human flight, that is worthy. And guess what? Like, to be like really, like, we happened during the time of the 7 years, for 2 years, we made a show about Shaun White and snowboarding, and that guy really changed snowboarding to be that. And there was money brought into that, and some things got a little ruined, but we saw what opportunity it created for other athletes in the world. And I remember, like, Shaun actually, like, we were telling him about this project and stuff, and he would look at some of the footage, and he was like, people think I'm crazy. These guys are amazing, and they don't have the toolkit to fine-tune so many things that could be maybe fine-tuned here with dreams, project. So, yeah, I guess the what I'm trying to get at is I do hope that this sport and family stays silly and raw and real to itself and take risks the way it is, but in the same time, have a way and a resource to build that dream of human flight, because I kind of think it's still got a lot to grow. It's a young, especially when we look at this wingsuiting and stuff, and it is really remarkably beautiful to me that someone could do what is done. And that's kind of something we don't talk about.
And that's my next question for you guys is, what is next? I know you already mentioned briefly about some ideas that you have and that you're taking some time off, but if there is something that's coming up, what is that? And tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're just developing, we always kind of, in the past, it was always we would, put something out into the world, and while something was kind of developing in the background. And I think this is the first time that our slate is a little clearer, and we're developing a few things, but they're very early on. Who knows if they'll actually come to fruition, but that's kind of where we're at. We have nothing quite coming out, or nothing that's in, production at the moment.
So
a little more.
At the time of this airing of this podcast, the film will have just been recently released in IMAX theaters. Where else will the viewers, the audience, be able to see it and stream it?
So Hulu, Nat Geo, Disney Plus, basically, is the streamer on all. It's one platform now, one family. But as of 25th of September, it will be streaming on the Disney Plus, Hulu, Nat Geo streamers.
25th of September, Hulu, Nat Geo, Disney Plus.
Amazing.
So as amazing as IMAX in theater is, that is probably where the majority.
Sure.
They will be available to whatever 100+ million they have.
Absolutely. And how can people support you guys other than going to see the film or streaming the film? How can we follow you, support you? How can people connect with you?
You'll definitely get a hug, but where can we find your work? Where can we find you? Yeah.
There's some prior work up there. If you kind of Google, there's some on Max, and Immigration Nation and on Netflix. Honestly, the support we want from this community is like just to be open. We do hope, like we said, that part of our future, one thing we are developing is a potential doc show or something we have long dreamed a little bit of doing, but have never done, a fiction. And it's funny because when you have like a really good thing about reality, you think it's like the one thing that's better than fiction, but then you always realize some of the characters we've met, and getting to know their past and stuff, that the opportunities that could come if we did write based on true event story. So if we do, maybe that is a form of support. If we come to you and ask to help out in those things, that would be cool. But that would be a cool. I hope we keep working with the Sky family and with Space Jump.
And is there a website for where people can find out more information about the film?
Just the Nat Geo.
Yeah, there's not an actually dedicated website.
They have, so on Nat Geo Docs, if you just literally don't have the link, and maybe we can share it, but if you type,
we'll put in the show notes.
One of the first hits will come like a Nat Geo page that has like a link and showtimes, and I know that will keep getting refreshed as and it has a trailer. So Nat Geo has
Nat Geo Fly Film.
Yeah. And I want to say thank you to you both as well. I mean, thank you for dedicating so much of your time, your life, your heart to uplifting the Sky family. Like it is not nothing what you are doing, what you have done. And so thank you. Thank you for sharing today. Thank you for all of it. And Jay, I'll give you a chance to share as well.
Yeah, I started off the podcast with my versions of how our stories have been told have often been one where I've been left with a sense of disappointment and going, that was kind of the Hollywood version of who we are and not the real version. And so I'm deeply personally grateful to both of you for taking the time to actually take the time to tell the story and to learn the story and to be able to express it in a way that I feel is the best version it's ever been told. So thank you so much for that. It really means the world to me. And I know that there's a lot of other people listening to this right now and who will have seen the film that'll be feeling the exact same way, that it's their lives that is being portrayed through the characters on the screen, and it's their families that are going to be watching that film and getting a better understanding of why they make the decisions that they make in their lives. So thank you for that deeper expression and for everything and for being friends. I love you guys so much.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Thanks.
Well, nice to talk to you, boss.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're able to make it.
Yay. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, seriously, for listening, for spending your valuable time, energy, and heart with us. Every bit of it makes a difference.
Yeah, thank you. We would love it if you could show your support for the show by subscribing on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, or follow us on Instagram. You can always click the like button, leave us a comment, or share an episode with somebody directly.
Like we mentioned, every month we host integration coaching circles. So much good work is happening there. You are invited to join us. Go to trustthejourney.today/integration. The Trust the Journey family includes these integration coaching circles and our private Facebook group where we connect and support each other. Join us by going to our website, trustthejourney.today, and click the orange Patreon button.
Yeah, thanks. It's your support and engagement that make the show possible. Thank you. We're here to connect with you. Feel free to DM us anytime on Instagram. We're at trustthejourney.today. Thank you. We love you.
We love you.
Keep laughing, keep loving, and keep trusting the journey.